The rain came down like it had something personal against the city, thick and unforgiving, blurring traffic lights and soaking the cracked sidewalks before dawn had fully broken. Daniel Carter ran anyway, his worn leather shoes slapping against wet pavement, his breath sharp in his chest, his mind screaming reminders he didn't need. Today was the interview. The one chance. The job that could finally pull him and his 8-year-old daughter out of the quiet fear of overdue bills and sleepless nights. His tie was stuffed in his coat pocket, his resume pressed flat against his chest, and hope, fragile as glass, was pushing him forward. Then he saw her collapse near the bus stop, and everything in his life split into a before and an after. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one good decision can change everything, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Daniel slowed when he saw the woman crumpled on the bench, rain plastering her dark hair to her face, her coat far too thin for the cold morning. People hurried past, umbrellas angled low, eyes fixed on their own destinations, their own problems. Daniel hesitated, his phone vibrating with an interview reminder notification, his pulse pounding louder than the rain. He thought of Lily asleep at home, the way she'd smiled the night before when he promised things would get better soon. He thought of the calendar with red circles around rent dates and electricity bills. Then he saw the woman's hands trembling uncontrollably, her breathing shallow and panicked, and something deeper than fear moved him. He stepped closer, knelt down on the soaked concrete, and did the only thing that felt human. He stayed. Minutes stretched into an eternity as Daniel flagged down help, wrapped his own coat around her shoulders, and waited for an ambulance that felt like it was crawling through molasses. By the time paramedics arrived and lifted her onto a stretcher, Daniel's phone showed he had already missed the interview window. His chest ached, not from the cold, but from the crushing weight of what he had just lost. He followed the ambulance to the hospital, signing papers, answering questions, sitting in a plastic chair under flickering fluorescent lights while the rain kept falling outside, as if the world hadn't noticed his sacrifice at all. Daniel left the hospital hours later with nothing but damp clothes, empty pockets, and a hollow feeling he couldn't shake. He walked home instead of taking the bus, letting the city blur around him, replaying the moment he'd chosen a stranger over his future. When he opened the apartment door, Lily ran into his arms, her small hands clinging to his shirt, her voice bright with questions about how the interview went. Daniel forced a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, hugged her tight, and told her the truth in the gentlest way he could. That sometimes doing the right thing means things don't work out right away. The days that followed were heavy. Rejection emails arrived with polite wording and finality. Daniel sold his watch, then his old guitar, then anything that wasn't nailed down. He skipped meals so Lily wouldn't have to. At night, when she slept, he stared at the ceiling, wondering if kindness was a luxury people like him couldn't afford. Still, every morning, he got up, packed Lily's lunch, and reminded himself that she was watching, learning what kind of man her father was. A week later, just as Daniel was folding laundry in the dim living room, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find a woman standing there, dry, composed, her eyes warm and familiar in a way that made his breath catch. It took him a moment to recognize her without the rain, the fear, the hospital lights. She smiled, and the small apartment seemed to quiet around her presence. She stepped inside, looking at the peeling paint, the secondhand furniture, the life Daniel had built out of determination and love. The woman told him she had spent days trying to find him. She explained how she had been on her way to a board meeting that morning, distracted by stress and exhaustion, when her body had given out. She spoke about waking up in the hospital, being told a stranger had stayed with her, missed something important for her, and left without leaving a name. Daniel listened, stunned, his heart pounding again, but this time with something like disbelief. Then she told him who she was. Eleanor Whitmore, CEO of one of the fastest-growing healthcare technology companies in the country. The same company Daniel had interviewed for. The air in the room felt electric. Eleanor looked at him not with pity, but with respect. She talked about leadership, about how companies were built by people who chose integrity when no one was watching. She told him the interview panel had noted his absence, had nearly dismissed him, until she intervened personally. She explained that she had postponed the meeting that day because of him, and in doing so, had gained a clarity she hadn't expected. She offered him the job, not as charity, but as recognition of the kind of man he was. Daniel's world shifted again, but this time, it felt like solid ground forming beneath his feet. The months that followed were a blur of change. A new apartment with sunlight in the windows. Evenings without the knot of fear in his stomach. Lily laughing more, sleeping better, believing again in promises. Daniel worked hard, not just for the paycheck, but for the chance to prove that kindness and competence could live in the same heart. Eleanor became a mentor, then a friend, someone who reminded him that power meant nothing if it wasn't used to lift others. Years later, Daniel would sometimes pass that same bus stop on rainy mornings. He would slow down, remembering the man he had been, soaked and desperate, choosing compassion over certainty. He would think about how easily his life could have gone another way, how close he had been to believing that goodness didn't matter. And he would hold on to the truth that one moment of humanity had changed everything. If this story reached something soft inside you, if it reminded you that doing the right thing still matters in a world that rushes past suffering, please take a second to like this video, share it, and stay with the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive and reaching the people who need them most. Before this story ends, we'd love you to comment one word that describes how it made you feel, because your voice is part of this journey too. Daniel never became famous for what he did that rainy morning. There were no headlines, no viral clips, no applause. But every night, when he tucked Lily into bed and turned off the light, he felt something far better than recognition. He felt peace. And sometimes, that is the greatest reward kindness can ever give.